Hey, welcome to the final lesson of the theory chapter, where I'll introduce you to the collapse and the carousel element. First one is the collapse, and I'm going to build a small accordion. An accordion, if you're not familiar with the term, is a collection of elements that have a heading and a body, a content, right? And by default, you only expand the very first element while the others are collapsed. And as you click on each heading, that content will expand as well. So I'm just going to show you how it's done. Now, Bootstrap manages to do this with a panel group. So the first thing you have to do is create a div with a class of panel group and give it an ID, for example, of accordion. Inside, we're going to create a div class panel and panel default to grab the default styling. And inside, I'm going to do a panel heading plus a panel collapse. Now, the panel heading will just have the title on which you click and you expand the content below it. So for the title, I'm going to do an h4 with a class of panel title. And of course, you can use any type of heading as long as it has this particular class. And this will include an anchor tag. And the anchor tag will go to, for example, let's do content1. And it's going to say collapse1 for text. And also, on the anchor tag, you got to set data toggle equals collapse and data parent equals the ID of our accordion. And that's going to be accordion. So the same ID that I used here. So let me just clean this up for a little bit. And on the panel collapse, I'm going to add another class of collapse in, since it's the first element, so it needs to be expanded at first. And inside, I'm going to do a div with a class of panel body. And this will just have a paragraph with some text inside it. Now, in order for this to work, I need to set an ID on the panel collapse that equals to content1. So this link points to this div right here. Okay, once you do that, you need to copy the panel and paste it, depending how many elements you need. Of course, make sure you update the IDs and remove the in class on the other two. The in class should only be present in the very first element. So now if we refresh, we have 3 panels, and if we click on each one, you'll notice the collapse effect. And that's how you use the collapse plugin. Really simple. Now let's move on to the carousel. And the carousel is better known as a slider. It's one of those controls that take several images or several blocks of HTML and just change them periodically or offer controls so you can change them by hand. So let me show you how you create one of those. Right here, I'm going to add an HR. And I'm going to start with a div with a class of carousel and slide, and then data ride equals carousel. And let's also give it an ID of, let's say, carousel example. Okay, now inside you have a few elements. First one is indicators. You can add some round indicators at the very bottom of the carousel, telling you which slide is active. After that, you have a carousel inner, which will hold your slides. And finally, you have some controls for left and right, or previous and next. So let's start with the indicators first. You need to create an OL, ordered list, with a class of carousel indicators. And then you need to have a list item that has the data target attribute will point to the ID of our carousel, which is carousel example. And then you would have data slide 2 equals 0, meaning which slide should that indicator go to. And let's do this times 3. Now I'm going to change things here, go to 1, go to 2. And also, since this is the first one, I'm going to add the class of active. Next, we need to add the actual slides. So we're going to use a div with a class of carousel inner. And inside, each slide will be placed inside a div with a class of item. Now, inside this item, you can place pretty much anything, but I'll show you how to use the carousel with some images. So we have image source. I have some test images loaded. It's called slide 1 JPG. The old is going to be slider. Okay, copy this, paste it 3 times, and change the image sources to reflect the new images. All right, so let's refresh and see what we got. Nothing yet, because I think my images are called slider, not slide. And also add the class of active to the very first item. So the first image is shown. All right, so there it is, the carousel. If I click on these indicators, it changes. And now all we got to do is add left and right controls. So after the div with a class of carousel inner, I'm going to say A with a class of left carousel control. The href will go to my carousel example ID, and then I'm going to say data slide equals previous. And inside, I'm just going to put an icon. So span with a class of glyph icons, glyph icons actually, chevron left. Okay, and there it is. Well, let's do the same for right. All we gotta change here is the class of right, and data slide next, and this also to right. And there we go. And also the href should have a hashtag in front. Refresh, and there we go. We now have a functional slider. Now, if you want some captions above your images, you can add them via the carousel caption div. So below your image, you would say div with a class of carousel caption. And inside you can add like a heading or a paragraph. Let's add a heading 3 and a paragraph. This is a caption and some simple text. I'm just going to copy this and paste it here and here. Refresh, and there we go. That is the caption. And that's it basically. Now, I only showed you a few components from this framework. Bootstrap has a lot more, and you can check out their website to see all of them. But the exercise part is up next, and I'll show you some more components over there, and also you'll see how they apply to a complete page. So thank you for watching so far. I'll see you in the next lesson.